and complete bipartisan consensus. Well, would you look at that? There is no dissent anywhere in Congress from Republicans. Okay, there were, I think it was like 18 Republicans or whatever who voted no. Let's be real, they were allowed to vote no. If their vote was needed, they would have definitely voted yes. But anyway, there was no serious threat to this vote passing in Congress because, like I said, the people who make decisions, they all were in the line that we're going to allow Finland and Sweden to be in NATO. And when has there ever been consensus this quickly? And you couldn't take this applies to everything else that's been going on with the war in Ukraine. The $54 billion in weapons that we've sent over there. At no point when any of these things come up, is there like some debate between the Republicans and the Democrats and we have to make some concessions to the Republicans to get their votes so that we can give these can somebody, I dare anybody to show me anywhere in the weapons deals that were approved by Congress. Show me anywhere that they had to cut something out to make some concessions to the Republicans because they were all going to vote no on it unless they got X, Y, or Z. What was it? Did they leave off $10 billion in missiles so they could get the yes votes from the Republicans? No, they didn't. Because the lobbyists from Raytheon and Boeing and Honeywell walked into their office and said, we need $54 billion in weapons to go to Ukraine. And the Republicans and Democrats who take money from the people who are going to make those same weapons, they were like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Let's do this. We'll give you the money, you make the weapons, and then you just give us a couple $1 million in campaign donations. This whole thing is just one big fucking scam and money laundering operation. So there is the point I'm trying to make is when it comes to anything that politicians, corporate donors are going to benefit from, both the Republicans and Democrats, they're going to agree on it. They're like I said, at no point did they say, whoa, Biden, we're not giving you $54 billion. We're only giving you $20 billion to send to Ukraine. At no point did they say that. At no point were there any deficit hawks and debt mongers saying, oh, we're not going to vote on this unless you take some shit out. No, they were all on board with everything, every fucking penny of it. And compare that to any time they do anything to help regular people or even pretend to help regular people. Because we know, like the CARES Act, that shit did not help regular people. It was a giant corporate scam from the beginning. But even let's take the CARES Act, for example. At the beginning of a pandemic, unprecedented pandemic, we've never seen anything like this before. Got people shut down, can't go to work, can't make money, all this shit, people losing their jobs. And there's supposed to be a government response, right? That was supposed to be the CARES Act. And they're over here bickering, going back and forth. Again, this is all theater. We all know that they didn't really actually want to help regular people. But the theater of it was, the Republicans aren't going to give us the votes we need to pass this unless we take out some stuff that helps regular people. Again, makes absolutely no sense because that's supposed to be the purpose of this bill. It's an emergency. We need to help people, right? A bunch of millions of people can't go to work, right? In the beginning of a pandemic. That's what was supposed to be the priority of the CARES Act. They can't pay their rent. Let's help them pay their rent. That was supposed to be the priority. And then they come back and say, well, guys, we really wanted to give you those $2,000 a month checks, but we didn't have the votes from the Republicans, so we took that out. And we took out also everything else that we said was going to help you. We took all that shit out too, but we kept the corporate giveaways. And we had to do it because we had to get the Republican votes. But when it comes to anything that escalates war or anything that starts a war, there is complete consensus. And like I said, this is just, I'm trying to illustrate how much this is all fucking theater. Like none of this isn't, they're not in Congress having a spirited debate back and forth. And like they really believe one way or the other on these issues. It really comes down to what do their corporate donors want? Their corporate donors wanted that $54 billion to go to Ukraine. They want to keep this war going indefinitely to the end of time. They've already said this. They want to make this a new Afghanistan war. They were in Afghanistan for 20 fucking years. still in Iraq 20 years later. So they're just looking for another endless war that they can pump another $1 trillion into, $2 trillion into, $3 trillion into. And like I said, the executives at the weapons manufacturers make a bunch of fucking money. The lobbyists who go in and tell the politicians and write these policies and tell the politicians what to pass, they're making a bunch of fucking money. And the politicians are also going to make a bunch of fucking money. So that's really the game that's going on here. And with the same thing with the vote to allow Finland and Sweden into NATO. That's what the corporate donors wanted, and that's exactly what happened. And there was absolutely no dissent on that. Even though that is a vote that can provoke or is just further escalation into a conflict with a nuclear armed country. That's what that vote can be construed as. I don't know what would happen after. What's going to happen after that vote? But you allow Finland and Sweden into NATO and put nuclear weapons onto Russia's border, put whole armies, U.S. army and the U.K.'s army and France's army on Russia's border as you're threatening to overthrow their government. You're provoking, you're escalating, you're increasing the likelihood of a conflict, direct armed conflict with a country that has nuclear weapons. That's what that vote did in Congress. And there was no dissent on that. That is fucking crazy. That is crazy. That's the point of that's where it's at with U.S. politics. Where there is no escalation too great as long as we can basically say fuck you to Russia. And it's crazy, honestly. It's crazy. Let me get to the chat real quick, and then I'll get to the next story. Oh, and before actually, let me retract it because I'm not going to end this segment here because I have to give it up to the alleged anti-war coalition, anti-imperialist coalition, the so-called left in Congress, right? The Bernie Sanders, the AOCs, the people who raised a bunch of fucking money, hundreds of millions of dollars. I've covered this on the channel. I wrote articles about it. Raised hundreds of millions of dollars, pretending like they were going to be different from the rest of the shitty corporate politicians who will do shit like fund more war before they do anything to help regular people. All these politicians who claim to be against the war machine and the profiteering from war and the military-industrial complex, like I said, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Ilhan Omar, they all voted yes to expand NATO and invite Finland and Sweden into NATO. Like I said, already knowing that is nothing but a further there's no other way to interpret that other than an escalation of this situation in Ukraine, by inviting Finland and Sweden into NATO. And all the people who claim to be against the war machine did it. They went along with the rest of the warmongers, and there was absolutely no dissent on that. So that's just another point to be made about how they really took people for a ride, myself included. People who actually thought that they were going to be, for once, politicians who say, hey, how about we not escalate this war? How about we not start another fucking war for once? For once in my life, I thought there were going to be a couple politicians, at least a couple, to do that. But this is just further proof that they're just going to go along with whatever the rest of the shitty corporate politicians decide is policy, and there really isn't going to be any dissent. There is no difference. Show me the difference between the politicians who don't take corporate money and the rest of the shitty Democratic Party. Go ahead, show me the difference on Ukraine. There is none. Bernie Sanders supports all the $54 billion to Ukraine. Yes, he supports that. Same with AOC and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, Jamal Bowman. None of them at no point at any point in this has actively pushed back against the the escalations that we've been making. At no point will they acknowledge the way that the U.S. violated and Ukraine violated the Minsk agreements, or the uh, 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 escalation of inviting Ukraine into NATO. How provocative that was to even begin with. None of them will even mention all of that. They are all in lockstep with the propaganda coming from the war machine. Putin bad. Um, this is we all have to do whatever we can to stop Putin, and if that means a nuclear exchange, then fuck it. Let's do it. Let's get it going, baby. Let's get the missiles in the air. And it is a crazy place to be in, where these countries have enough nuclear weapons to literally destroy all life on the planet. And in no government, in none of the governments, are there any politicians advocating for restraint, saying let's not push this any further. This has already gone way too far. Where, like I said, funding an entire army to kill Russian troops in Ukraine, completely there is no separation between the Ukrainian government and the U.S. government at this point. We are complete. $54 billion, that was already more than the entire Ukrainian economy before the war. So we are completely funding this a war in Ukraine, and trying to, with the economic warfare, the sanctions, trying to literally destroy Russia's economy, and at the same time trying to kill Russian troops, and trying to put even militarize the situation even more by putting NATO armies even more on Russia's border. It's just wild. It's a wild time. It's a wild time. Keenan says it's finally nice to